And coming up with us now, Senator John McCain, of course, as we've been reporting, has been challenging the Pentagon's efforts to allow gays to serve openly in the military. McCain's opposition to repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell also puts him at odds with some of his closest Senate allies.
We're on the front lines of a turning point in American history. It's just wrong and un-American to discriminate against people based on their sexual orientation.
Senator Joe Lieberman is senior member of the Armed Services Committee, joins us now direct from that hearing. Senator, John McCain really went after both Mike Mullen and Bob Gates today on the subject of whether or not Marines who, as Gates said, are young, haven't worked with women, might not be as supportive of this, but would get used to it. And McCain, clearly came out, and I think we have a bit of that sound as well, saying, look, they're brave enough and old enough to fight for their country. They should know what is good for them.
I think that with time and adequate preparation, we can mitigate their concerns.
Well, I couldn't disagree more. We send these young people into combat. We think they're mature enough to fight and die. I think they're mature enough to make a judgment on who they want to serve with and the impact on their battle effectiveness. Mr. Secretary, I speak from personal experience.
That's a pretty powerful moment and a powerful disagreement. What do you say to your good friend, John McCain?
I disagree with my good friend John McCain on this, and I think, first off, you got to reach the judgment, as I have, and I think most Americans have, that it's not acceptable in our country to judge people based on their race or religion or gender or sexual orientation. As Admiral Mullen said today, in the military and in America, success is not based on who you are, it's based on what you do, how you behave, how well you do your job. That's the American promise and the American dream. Once you decide that, and I think President Obama, Secretary Gates, Admiral Mullen have decided that, I certainly agree with them. The report that was done, the survey that was done by the Pentagon, really raised the question, will implementing this policy change to repeal a bad policy that's discriminatory compromise military effectiveness? And I think the clear answer from the survey is no. And I want to focus in on one number, because a lot of this is kind of it's a change, and it's a cultural change, and for some young people it's an awkward situation to think about. But what was most compelling to me is that when the survey asked members of the military who said they are pretty sure that they have been serving in a unit with somebody who's gay or lesbian, whether that compromised the effectiveness of their unit, 92% said no, it didn't compromise the effectiveness of the unit, and that included 84% of the Marines in combat and 89% of the Army in combat. So in other words, you start with some uneasiness, maybe worries, fears, but really when in battle, the Marines and the Army in combat did exactly what the American military always does. They judge each other based on what kind of fighters and soldiers they are, not based on anything else. And I think once we implement this policy, as I hope we will soon, the American military will not only make it work, but it'll make the American military even better than it already is.